What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Crew 2, and well, as y'all know, it is Wednesday, which means the new summit is now live, and for this week we have the Barren Raid, which is actually going to give us a vehicle we have not seen in a really long time in the Platinum Reward, which is going to be a Demolition Derby car, and also this summit does look pretty interesting. Obviously, in the Barren Raid, we have the Rally Snake skin tire, which is probably going to be pretty basic, I would say. Then in silver, we will have the second part of the legendary half set boosted, with some of Fixit stats I would probably say many players are probably not going to want, but moving over to the next summit, which is going to be the second week of December, technically like the first week, is going to be the Premio, which gives us a very interesting tire in Platinum. I would say that's probably one of the brightest tires I have ever seen, and seeing that thing on the road is honestly probably going to be pretty insane. But in gold, we have the rough CTR3 drag race, which by the way, is probably going to be one of the worst drag cars in the entire game, because for some odd reason the car does like 340 miles an hour and not any faster. I think that car has been like that since it has released and or came out with the game. And then taking a look at this summit, guys, I would say this one is going to be pretty fun. It has a nice mix of events there, from powerboat to street races. It also looks like we're going to have an escape there, so be prepared to most likely use a drag car on that one. And then moving over to the next summit is going to be the Rising Sun, which I would say many players are probably going to do this summit. If I had to guess, I would say many probably missed out on this vehicle, but the Mitsubishi Lancer Evolution X Red Fury Edition is definitely going to be a pretty sweet car to have. And then in gold, we have the legendary half set boosted for the drift class. Now, one thing I do want to mention, that I also did say this in my previous summit video as well, is unfortunately, guys, the score breaker set for the drift class is not going to really matter. You're actually going to want to go after the Nitrochemist set, but at least you will have the slippery and hothead on there, which will definitely increase your score a lot. And then moving over to the next summit is going to be the Santa Special, which is obviously going to be a Christmas themed summit. In Platinum, we have the ugly Christmas sweater, which if I had to guess is probably going to look pretty interesting on your character. And then in gold, we have the Dodge Challenger Demon Interception Unit. I would say most players most likely already have this vehicle. And then finally in silver, we will have the Loot Digger boosted for the street class, which if I had to guess is most likely only going to be about 3 parts. And now moving over to the Barren Raid Summit here, starting off with the Slalom, and for this one I did actually decide to use a street car this time instead of the rallycross vehicles. I was like, you know what, let's jump into one of these street cars, and to be honest guys, you can basically run any vehicle of your choice on the slaloms. I mean, they basically all work. Even the Berlinetta here did an insanely good job. And then moving over to the next skill is going to be an escape, and for this one you luckily get to use a boat instead of a drag car, and as y'all know, the 1414 Demon is probably going to be the best option for this one. I really do feel like this is probably one of the best boats in the entire game when it comes to pretty much everything. My other favorite boat is the Vector V40R, but for the escapes, I would say the 1414 Demon is probably going to be the best option. Not only is this most likely the fastest boat in the game, but the way the 1414 can actually handle speed, it's most likely going to be unmatched. And then moving over to the final skill this week is going to be Aerobatics, and for this one I did end up running the Zivko Edge once again. I would say guys, the handling and stability of this plane I really do feel like is going to make it unmatched. The way the Zivko handles I really do feel like is going to make the aerobatic skills much easier, and not only that, you can also run this plane on the race in the summit as well, which is kind of funny because I basically threw on a Nitrochemist set and jumped into the air race, and I didn't have to change a single thing about the plane besides the parts, and this thing easily completed the race as well. And then moving over to the Demolition Derby event here, you will get to drive the new vehicle, which I would say from first impressions of using it in this event, I think this car might actually be pretty good, which by the way guys, do not worry, this is going to be a race and not an actual Demolition Derby, which I was very happy to see that because that honestly would have been a nightmare. But for this event though, a few big tips here. So for one, watch out for the other racers because hitting them and or getting near them is going to massively slow you down. And because of the way this track is set up, you will have to ride the walls as well, and this Demolition Derby vehicle is base level at 110 I believe it is, so you're going to pretty much need as much speed as you possibly can get. I do recommend grabbing the repair things when they spawn because going up the walls will end up damaging the front of your vehicle a little bit, so you might have issues steering later on in this event. So I do definitely recommend going after that repair thing because it's going to make this race a lot easier. And then moving over to the next event is going to be an Alpha GP race, and for this one you do get to use the Mark X. This I would say is still going to be a very good Alpha GP car for the most part. I mean, the handling and all that is pretty great. It has a pretty low top speed at like 265 miles an hour, and luckily on Miami Beach you really can't push the car all that much, but I would say the Mark X is going to be a pretty dang good vehicle for the most part. But one big tip I can give guys, by the way, is if you might be struggling with this car to get it to turn, I would recommend lowering all the settings on it compared to the tracks that you normally would race this thing on, and maybe even lower the actual tire grip on it as well. I was finding this to be pretty helpful. And then moving down to the next event is going to be with the 911 Carrera S. Not only that, but this is going to be one of the new races in the game, so I would recommend being a little bit careful on this event because of the wind, because it will definitely blow you all over the place. But for the most part, the 911 Carrera is probably going to be one of those underrated street cars in the game. I found this car to be really good, and it also has pretty good handling. I would say one of the biggest things to get used to, at least if you guys are running manual, is the fact that this car is at 8 speed. And then moving over to the touring car event here, you will have to use the Camaro SS. If I had to guess, I would say this is most likely one of those cars that most players will most likely never use, including myself. I mean, I'm not a big fan of this vehicle in the touring class, but luckily guys, this car really isn't all that bad. It will most likely take some time to get used to the Camaro because I feel like a lot of players have not really driven this car, but I have to admit guys, I wouldn't say the Camaro SS is the worst car in the touring class, but it's definitely not going to be the best either. And then moving over to the final event in the summit guys, you will have to use a monster truck in a rally raid race, and for this one it is going to be the Great Sand Dunes, which is actually one of my favorite rally raid races in the game. And funnily enough, the monster trucks are actually going to be really fun on this one. You could basically run any vehicle of your choice, but I would recommend trying out the Ford Mustang GT because this thing is insanely fast and handles pretty well. I would also recommend being kind of careful in this event because you can definitely lose these things pretty easily. I would say the biggest recommendation on this event is probably going to be the fact of not trying to steer the monster truck too much in the air, because for some odd reason it does not like to do that in the dunes at all. But that will basically do it for this summit. I would say a lot of players are probably going to enjoy this one. There's luckily no insanely annoying events in this besides maybe that Demolition Derby race with the crazy AI. But if you guys have any questions at all, let me know in the comments below. Let's jump right into this.